In Chapter 1, Lin, the Emperor's daughter, struggles with memory loss after a mysterious sickness, unable to recall her past or connect with her father. He doubts her abilities as his heir, prompting Lin to seek answers and prove her worth. Lin competes with her foster brother Bayan, who holds more knowledge of the Emperor's magical constructs, yet Lin's desire to learn is met with resistance. Determined to gain control, she sneaks through the palace, evading her father's constructs and exploring his locked rooms. Lin finds a key from her father's chain and, despite fears, convinces a blacksmith to copy it, hoping it will lead her to answers. She also promises to retrieve a missing shard for the blacksmith in exchange for his help. As Lin rushes back to the palace to replace the key before her father notices, she's caught by Bayan, raising further questions about her intentions. In Chapter 2, Jovis, a smuggler, navigates Deerhead Island amidst the chaos of the tithing festival. He's investigating the disappearance of his wife Imala and has a lead regarding a boat that may have taken her. Disguised in an Imperial soldier's uniform, he navigates through the streets, avoiding detection from soldiers who may recognize him. At a local drinking hall, he meets Danila, the foster mother of another missing young woman, Soshi. She reveals Soshi's disappearance and her own suspicions, urging Jovis to take her nephew, Alan, to safety before the tithing festival. Despite his reluctance to smuggle children, Jovis agrees. As he prepares to leave, an earthquake shakes the area, adding tension to his already precarious situation. Upon leaving the building, Jovis is confronted by a group of Imperial soldiers, setting the stage for further conflict as he continues his search for answers about Imala's disappearance. In Chapter 3, Jovis, disguised in an Imperial soldier's uniform, navigates the streets of Deerhead Island during the chaos of the tithing festival. After a brief confrontation with the soldiers, where he narrowly avoids being caught, he learns of a disaster. Deerhead Island is sinking. As the ground shakes, Jovis, with Alan, a young boy in tow, escapes from the city heading toward the docks. Amidst the growing destruction, he manages to get Alan onto his boat and away from the collapsing island. As the island sinks into the ocean, Jovis struggles to maintain control of the situation, using Whetstone to fuel his boat's movement and desperately trying to outrun the impending whirlpool. He tosses the remaining Whetstone overboard, making the difficult choice to prioritize survival. Meanwhile, Alan mourns the loss of his family and the island. Despite the loss, Jovis offers a small act of compassion by rescuing a kitten, symbolizing his fragile hope. In Chapter 4, Lin confronts Bayan outside her father's room, feeling tension between them as they exchange barbs. Lin is still grappling with her memory loss and her rivalry with Bayan, who holds more keys and has gained favor with her father. They briefly discuss their frustrations, and Bayan suggests Lin try meditating to regain her memories. Their conversation is interrupted by Lin's father, who approaches with a cough. In an attempt to cover, Lin claims Bayan was showing her the secret library, but before they can be questioned further, a large, grotesque, spider-like construct, Illith, the construct of spies, appears, delivering urgent news. Deerhead Island has sunk into the sea, causing immediate concern. Lin's father quickly shifts his focus to the disaster, leaving Lin and Bayan in the shadows, knowing their rivalry and secrets remain unresolved. In Chapter 5, Fallow is distracted during a sparring match with Tithus due to her troubled relationship with Ranami. While sparring, she confesses her confusion over their relationship and her failed attempts to marry Ranami. Fallow struggles with the dynamics of their relationship, especially as Ranami objects to Fallow's position as governor's heir. After a brief exchange with Tithus about her feelings for Ranami, Fallow reflects on her conflicting emotions. She later visits Ranami's apartment, but finds it empty and ransacked. Desperate and confused, Fallow searches the apartment, discovering a letter that directs her to the Alanga ruins if she wants to find Ranami. This discovery sets the stage for Fallow's next steps as she embarks on a journey to rescue Ranami, propelled by a deep sense of urgency and love. In Chapter 6, San climbs a mango tree on Mela Isle, determined to gather enough fruit for the village, knowing that returning without a full bag could result in death. As she struggles to pick the mangoes, she experiences a sudden vivid memory of a palace, but quickly shakes it off. Her focus returns to the tree, but in a moment of distraction, she falls, injuring herself severely. As she lays on the ground, her mind spirals into confusion, questioning her identity and the memory of the palace. Despite her injury, she continues her task collecting mangoes, but now feels a shift in her thoughts. She realizes the need to fill the bag no longer matters. Walking back to the village, she's struck by a profound question. Why is she on Mela Isle, and why doesn't anyone leave? This moment marks a shift in her understanding of her life and purpose. In Chapter 7, Jovis is aboard his boat with Aelin, reflecting on the devastation of Deerhead Island sinking into the sea. Alan plays with a small creature, Mephistolu, that Jovis had saved from the water. The boy is devastated by the loss of his home and aunt, and Jovis, despite his own grief, tries to comfort him by speaking of his aunt's love for him. Jovis continues his journey to find Amala, using the information from a fisherman who saw a boat with a blue sail. After docking at Alan's home, Jovis learns that Alan's mother is shardsick, a result of using bone shards for power. He gets paid for his help, but must face the Iofkarn, who are after him. After a confrontation with Feline, Jovis narrowly escapes, racing to his boat. Mephistolu the creature insists on staying with him despite Jovis's initial reluctance, adding further complications to his journey. In Chapter 8, Lynn, disguised as a servant, interacts with a spy construct while attempting to steal Whetstone from her father's palace storage. She successfully lures the construct away with nuts, noting that it reports to Illith, the construct of spies. Lynn is aware that she's being watched and contemplates the current instability in the Empire following the sinking of Deerhead Island. Determined to secure her position as her father's heir, she sneaks into a hidden room in the palace, unlocked by a key she secretly obtained. Inside, Lynn discovers a catalog of bone shards from people whose shards power constructs, including the Shard of Numine, a man she feels conflicted about using. Lynn realizes her father's neglect of the Empire and the people's well-being, raising doubts about his true intentions. She attempts to unlock another door in the room, but is unable to open it, experiencing a strange familiarity with the door's engravings. In Chapter 9, Jovis races to catch a mysterious ship with blue sails, hoping to find answers about his missing wife, Amala. As he prepares his boat, he realizes his Whetstone is missing, adding to his anxiety. Despite his physical exhaustion and the threat of the Iofkarn, Jovis is determined to pursue the ship. Mephi, a strange creature Jovis has befriended, unexpectedly aids him by creating wind with its breath, helping the boat gain speed. As they chase the ship, Jovis grows desperate, haunted by memories of Amala and his longing for closure. However, despite Mephi's efforts, the ship pulls ahead, and Jovis watches helplessly as it disappears over the horizon. He grapples with guilt, realizing his obsession with finding answers may cost him everything, including Mephi's well-being. In the end, Jovis is left with the crushing realization that his pursuit has failed once again. In Chapter 10, Lynn continues her secretive attempts to gather keys to secure her position as the Emperor's heir. After visiting the blacksmith to have a new key made, she lies to him about retrieving his bone shard. She returns to the palace, meditates in her room, and stealthily explores the palace at night. Lynn finds a hidden library containing books on the bone shard magic used by her father's constructs. She learns about the different commands used to control the constructs, and is tempted to take a book for further study. While searching, Lynn discovers a small, hidden book that bears her handwriting. Realizing it is her own, she takes it with her, but when she turns around, a spy construct is watching her. This discovery deepens her suspicions about her father's actions, and the chapter ends with Lynn on edge, feeling both excitement and fear. In Chapter 11, Ranami waits anxiously for Falu, her lover, to arrive after a false kidnapping set up by the Shardless Few. Despite their frequent disagreements, Ranami hopes that Falu will come to her rescue just as she has in the past. When Falu arrives, angry yet determined, the tension between them fades as they embrace. However, their reunion is complicated by Geo, the leader of the Shardless Few, who urges Falu to consider their cause. Geo explains that the farmers on Nephalanu Island are suffering, and they need Falu's help to steal a shipment of caro nuts to save them from starvation. Falu resists at first, but after a heartfelt conversation with Ranami, she agrees to help, albeit reluctantly. Falu sends a message to the Emperor, promising to complete the task while keeping the rebellion at bay. Ranami, emotional and overwhelmed, expresses her gratitude. In Chapter 12, Jovis sails through the endless sea, reflecting on his past with Imala and his decision to care for the creature Mephi. He notices the profound changes after Deerhead Island's sinking and is concerned about the refugees and the unrest it will cause. Jovis examines his options, including selling melons at the next island to fund his search for the blue-sailed boat that took Imala. Mephi, now more comfortable, continues to accompany Jovis, displaying surprising intelligence. Jovis finds a buyer for the melons, though the exchange is tense as the farmer tries to downplay the melons' value. After some negotiation, Jovis receives a fair price. As he attempts to blend in, someone calls his name and a hand grabs his arm, exposing his tattoo, which leads to a surprising encounter, marking a new complication in his journey. In Chapter 13, Lin captures a spy construct that has been watching her, knowing it will report her actions to the construct of spies. She struggles to keep it alive, as killing it would alert her father. Lin seeks a way to hide the construct and turns to Numin, a blacksmith, for help. She offers him Whetstone in exchange for his assistance in storing the construct until the situation settles. Numin agrees reluctantly, and Lin is reminded of the sacrifices she must make to prove her worth. As she leaves, Lin reflects on her father's failing rule and her desperation to gain control. She has been stealing keys and seeking knowledge about her father's magic, hoping to one day take his place. Lin believes that by learning to control her father's constructs, she can gain the power she needs to prove her worth and secure the throne. In Chapter 14, Sand reflects on her lack of memory and tries to uncover more about her past. She has vague memories of Coral's arrival on Mela Isle and grows suspicious of her, realizing that Coral hasn't always been part of the community. Sand confronts Coral, asking her when she arrived and how, suspecting her presence may not be as long-standing as everyone claims. Coral initially denies any difference, but after pressing her, Coral recalls arriving in a small boat with blue sails, though she can't remember much else. Sand is struck by the realization that Coral's arrival may be tied to something significant. But before she can fully understand, Coral forgets everything as the routines of daily life take over. Sand's growing sense of frustration and confusion emphasizes the deeper mystery surrounding the community and her own lost memories. In Chapter 15, Jovis is approached by a man who asks him to smuggle his daughter out of the city to a contact on Unta, offering a significant payment. Despite his reservations about the shardless few, Jovis agrees, seeing it as a potential way to earn money and get closer to finding Imala. He navigates the bustling city, meeting with Shui, an informant who confirms seeing a boat with blue sails and a young woman who resembles Imala. However, Shui's description doesn't match exactly, leading to mixed feelings of hope and disappointment for Jovis. Later, Jovis struggles to gather Whetstone, which he needs to continue his journey. He returns to the docks at sundown, only to find that the man also wants him to smuggle another child. Jovis realizes that his choices are having unintended consequences, and his mission becomes more complicated as he steps deeper into a web of obligations. In Chapter 16, Lin secretly practices with a construct she has created using parts from animals stored by her father. She hopes to gain control over the shards that power constructs, proving herself worthy of her father's respect and eventual rule. When her father unexpectedly visits her room, she hides the construct and pretends to have been meditating, as advised by Bayan. They share an uncomfortable dinner, where Lin's father and Bayan discuss the ongoing issues within the Empire, including the growing unrest and the shardless few. The conversation turns tense when Bayan asks for a key to a mysterious door, triggering a violent reaction from Lin's father. This moment exposes the power dynamics between them, with Lin's father asserting his dominance. After the confrontation, Lin blurts out a question, distracting her father and deflecting attention away from Bayan, momentarily gaining his focus instead. In Chapter 17, Jovis agrees to take a boy with him on his journey, prompted by the boy's father's request. Despite the risks, Jovis is motivated by Mifi's happiness, who enjoys the company of the children. On their journey, they encounter a spy construct who attempts to stop them from leaving the island, but Jovis lies and convinces the construct to let them pass. As they sail away, Jovis reflects on his past, remembering the complicated relationship he had with Imala, who once rejected him but later expressed her love. This memory stirs emotions within him as he recalls their shared moments. Mifi, oblivious to the sadness, comforts Jovis, and together they navigate the rainstorm. Jovis is left contemplating the bittersweet memories of his past love, realizing that what was once good is now a painful reminder of what he's lost. In Chapter 18, Lin faces her father's scrutiny as he tests her memory, offering a key as a reward for answering his questions. Despite her anger and frustration, she answers his questions and is given a key, though it feels like a mere token. Lin and Bayan, her rival, have an awkward moment of mutual understanding, and he reluctantly leads her to a secret door in the palace. They find a hidden courtyard with a cloud juniper where Lin is struck by its beauty. Bayan reveals his exhaustion from serving her father and hints at the dangerous nature of their rivalry. He admits he wants to become emperor to survive, but is resigned to his fate as a foster son. Lin reflects on her own desire for power and the challenges she faces, realizing they are both trapped in the same struggle for control with 7 keys each and no way to escape their rivalry. In Chapter 19, Falu struggles with her position as the daughter of a governor while grappling with her growing frustrations over her father's policies. She tries to advocate for the farmers by suggesting changes to the quotas but is dismissed by her father. Falu, feeling the weight of her privileged upbringing, feels disconnected from the hardships of the people her father governs. Her interactions with Ranami intensify, as they work together to steal Karo nuts for the farmers. The chapter explores Falu's internal conflict between loyalty to her father and her growing empathy for the Shardless, led by Ranami. Their journey to the farms exposes Falu to the harsh living conditions of the farmers, forcing her to confront the injustices that Ranami's actions challenge. Falu's realization of her inadequacy as a future ruler pushes her to act decisively, offering her help in the theft as she strives to make a meaningful change. In Chapter 20, Jovis drops off the children on Unta, navigating the monkey's tail with ease. During a stop at a drinking hall, he overhears a song about him, realizing his past deeds have gained him unwanted fame. His tattoo, marking him as a smuggler and thief, exposes his identity when it slips out from under his bandage. Despite his attempt to flee the attention, a crowd gathers, recognizing him as a hero. Jovis's power, manifesting through tremors that cause the drinking hall to shake, grows uncontrollably. After a tense confrontation with Feline from the Iop Karn and her group, Jovis's fearsome abilities are revealed as he uses them to drive them away. Though exhausted, Jovis contemplates the consequences of his actions and desires peace. However, the attention he attracts only grows as patrons approach him, seeking help, especially a woman asking for his assistance to save her son. In Chapter 21, Lin continues her work with constructs, trying to manipulate the shards inside them. She successfully alters the spy construct, which had been sent by her father, and reprograms it to obey her. Afterward, she joins Numin for dinner at his home, where she experiences a warm, familial environment vastly different from her own life at the palace. As they eat, Lin notices a spy construct watching them from the window and commands her own construct, How, to capture it. After a brief chase, Lin retrieves the shard from the captured spy and restores it. This act of using Bone's shard magic in Numin's home shocks everyone, and they begin to realize her true identity as the Emperor's daughter. Feeling exposed, Lin apologizes and hastily leaves, realizing the consequences of her actions as her secret is now out. In Chapter 22, Jovis is at the tithing festival, trying to rescue children from the ritual. He has developed a habit of rescuing children and gaining attention for it, often resulting in portraits and songs. He observes the soldiers preparing for the ritual and remembers the traumatic loss of his brother during a similar event. Jovis decides to act, incapacitating 2 soldiers and creating chaos to free the children. However, things spiral as more soldiers arrive, including archers on the rooftops. Using his newfound strength and Mifi's help, Jovis fights them off, though he is injured by an arrow. After escaping with the children, Jovis meets Ranami and Geo, leaders of the Shardless Few. Ranami offers him a chance to join their cause, promising him information about the blue-sailed ship he's been searching for. Reluctantly, Jovis agrees to help in exchange for the information about the ship. In Chapter 23, Jovis is confronted by Ranami, who offers him information about the blue-sailed boat in exchange for his help. He is skeptical of the Shardless Few's motives, but agrees to listen. Ranami leads him to a hidden cavern, revealing that it may have been a sanctuary for the Ilanga. Geo, the leader of the Shardless Few, explains their plan to overthrow the governor, who supports the Emperor, by cutting off the supply of Karo nuts. They want Jovis to assassinate the governor's personal guard as part of the coordinated attack. Jovis expresses doubt, claiming he's no assassin, but Geo insists on his abilities, referencing Jovis's past encounters with the Iop Karn. Jovis agrees to help, but remains wary of Geo's true intentions. Geo decides to accompany Jovis, showing his full involvement in the mission. In Chapter 24, Ranami struggles with the consequences of involving Falu in the Shardless Few's rebellion. After successfully stealing the Karo nuts, Ranami tries to explain the stakes to Falu, but Falu is torn between loyalty to her father and her love for Ranami. Despite their emotional conflict, Falu refuses to help overthrow her father, emphasizing that she cannot support the violent path Ranami has chosen. Ranami pleads with Falu to assist in infiltrating the palace, but Falu firmly refuses, asking her not to harm her father. As the conversation escalates, they are interrupted by the arrival of the governor's soldiers. Ranami is terrified, thinking they've come for her, but it turns out they've come for Falu, accused of stealing the Karo nuts. Falu agrees to go with the soldiers, her fear masked by calmness, leaving Ranami uncertain and conflicted about their future. In Chapter 25, Lin is summoned by her father for questioning about her memories, particularly about her 15th birthday, which she vaguely recalls. He gives her a key to the library and a list of books on construct creation to study, signaling her next phase of learning. While in the library, Lin encounters Bayan, who mocks her progress and reveals that her father has been physically abusing him. Lin is taken aback but doesn't know how to respond, as she's aware of the dynamics between her father and Bayan. The conversation turns to the Alanga and their defeat by the Sukai Empire, with Lin questioning Bayan about it. After a tense exchange, Bayan storms off, leaving Lin to reflect on her relationship with her father, her role as his favored child, and her conflicting feelings towards Bayan. Lin focuses on studying to rewrite Maga's commands, a dangerous task she must complete while her father sleeps. In Chapter 26, San continues to investigate the mysterious circumstances surrounding her arrival on Mela Isle. She begins questioning the island's residents, gathering information from those who have memories of arriving on a boat with blue sails. She learns that the boat arrived in waves, and the island's inhabitants seem to forget their past lives once they settle there. San's goal is to find the cove where they were first brought ashore, believing that the boat may return. As more people regain their memories, including Coral, they begin to form a plan. Sand intends to seize the boat when it arrives again. However, as she contemplates violent actions, she feels an invisible restraint, preventing her from considering direct harm. With the help of the others, they set off to search for the cove, and Sand begins to experience strange memories of a palace and a man in blue robes, deepening the mystery. In Chapter 27, Lin prepares to reprogram Mauga, a construct serving her father, before she is caught. She reflects on her journal entries, which reveal inconsistencies about her memories. Lin uses a secret library key to access Mauga's room, intending to alter his commands. She struggles with the complexity of the task, but is determined to prove her worth to her father. After some trial and error, Lin successfully alters Mauga's obedience to her father's commands, replacing them with her own. As she leaves the room, she is confronted by Bayan, who is visibly ill and seeking refuge. He confesses to Lin that her father is conducting experiments on people and begs for help. Lin hides him, but her father arrives with a construct, insisting that Bayan is delirious and needs to be taken away. Lin reluctantly lets her father take Bayan, still uncertain about the true nature of her father's actions. In Chapter 28, Jovis trains with Geo, leader of the Shardless Few, practicing how to take down a guard without alerting others. While Geo demonstrates his combat skills, Jovis is pushed to think strategically. Mephi, ever playful, interrupts the training, but inadvertently helps Jovis, showing a bond of trust. Jovis learns of the Shardless Few's constant fear of being discovered and their struggle against the Empire's oppression. He is shown the aftermath of the Empire's control. Sick individuals suffering from the shard sickness caused by the Empire's experiments. Geo subtly suggests Jovis could help the Shardless, but Jovis remains focused on his quest to find Amala. In a quiet moment, Jovis, Mephi, and Geo explore hidden parts of the Shardless hideout, discovering a room with strange, dust-covered artifacts. Jovis finds a book written in an unfamiliar script, and one word stands out: Alanga, stirring memories and deepening the mystery of their past. In Chapter 29, Lin sneaks onto the palace roof to confront Ophelia, a construct of her father, to modify its commands. She faces physical danger as she attempts to reach Ophelia's lair, struggling with slippery tiles and the harsh elements. After a tense and painful confrontation with Ophelia, Lin successfully extracts a reference shard, revealing complex commands that allow the construct to override her father's decisions in certain situations. Lin contemplates the morality of using another person's shard, but feels cornered by necessity. However, upon searching Ophelia's lair, Lin discovers a disturbing birth record book listing her own name with a death date of 1525, suggesting that she was dead at age 3. This revelation deeply unsettles Lin, linking her memory loss and strange experiences to her father's actions. As she hastily finishes her task, she is left with unsettling questions about her true fate and her father's intentions. In Chapter 30, Jovis sets out to gather information for Geo, tasked with finding a soldier who can provide a route to the governor's rooms. He is instructed to meet the soldier at a drinking hall near the docks and uses a disguise, hiding his identity with a hat. Jovis successfully locates the man and gets the promised parchment with a bait recipe, but the interaction reveals that Geo's spy has never arrived. Jovis leaves the hall, only to be seized in an alley by a spy construct, its claws digging into his arm. Attempting to use his enhanced strength to fight back, Jovis finds that the thrum in his bones fails him. He is left alone, helpless against the construct. This chapter further explores Jovis's discomfort with the rebellion, and his growing realization of how isolated he truly is. In Chapter 31, Lin carefully navigates the palace to locate Illith's lair, which she suspects is hidden beneath the palace. After gathering information using her spy construct, she acquires a key to the secret room. She visits Numin's workshop to have a copy made and reflects on her past actions, particularly her fear of her father's experiments and the guilt she feels over abandoning Bayan. Numin makes the key, but Lin struggles with the fear of her father's control and her involvement in his machinations. Upon returning to the palace, she encounters Bayan, who seems to have no memory of his illness and her help. Lin presses him about the memory machine and the strange ceiling she remembers, but Bayan denies any recollection. His reaction suggests that something happened to him, but he refuses to share what. Lin is left unsure of how to proceed, but she is determined to uncover the truth. In Chapter 32, Jovis fights off a construct attacking him in the alley, realizing he's outmatched without the power in his bones. After killing the construct, he hurries back to the Shardless hideout, worried about Mephi's condition. He finds Mephi sick, but the situation demands action as the Shardless plan an attack on the palace. Geo insists they go tonight, despite Jovis's reluctance to leave Mephi. After some tense moments, Jovis agrees, and they head toward the palace. They climb up to a hidden entrance, and Jovis is forced to confront his lack of abilities as he faces guards. Geo manages to take down the guards with his skills, while Jovis realizes his power is still gone. The chapter ends with Jovis realizing something is wrong, and his abilities may be slipping away for good. He's left grappling with guilt, fear, and his role in the rebellion. In Chapter 33, Lin sneaks into the palace to rewrite Illith, the construct of spies, after successfully gaining access to her lair. Lin navigates through a series of underground tunnels, where she faces several challenges, including attacking constructs. She rewrites their commands, gaining control over them. Eventually, she reaches Illith's lair, where she discovers the complexity of Illith's commands and struggles to rewrite them correctly. Despite her best efforts, Illith awakens and confronts Lin, taunting her about her attempts to earn her father's approval. Lin realizes that her father is aware of her actions, including her connection with Numin's family and her secret visits. In the end, Lin's failure to rewrite Illith properly leaves her feeling lost and uncertain, but she resolves to keep trying. The chapter ends with Illith's ominous words, hinting at deeper secrets Lin has yet to uncover. In Chapter 34, Jovis and Geo infiltrate the governor's palace during a riot instigated by the Shardless few. As they move through the palace, Jovis struggles with his loss of abilities and the growing weight of his choices. Geo leads the way, expertly navigating the halls while Jovis fights off guards with his diminishing strength. Despite his injury, Jovis is determined to continue the mission, but his lack of power becomes evident. After defeating several guards, they reach the governor's suite, only to be confronted by the governor's personal guard. Geo and Jovis engage in a brutal fight, but without Jovis's usual strength, they struggle. Geo manages to defeat one guard, but the odds are against them. The governor orders their execution, and Jovis faces the devastating realization of failure, with no sign of his powers returning. In Chapter 35, Lin grapples with the consequences of her actions. Illith, a construct she tried to rewrite, is falling apart due to her failed attempts. Lin reflects on her father's creation of constructs, including Bayan, whom she now realizes was one himself. In a desperate bid to make things right, Lin steals the shard from Bayan's room and rushes to Numin's house to warn him and his family, urging them to leave before her father finds them. However, she arrives too late. Tirang, a deadly construct, murders Numin and his family. Lin is devastated, realizing the full extent of her father's cruelty. Confronting her father, she learns the horrifying truth. Her father has been creating people, not just constructs. In her final confrontation, her father reveals that her actions are still imperfect and Lin is struck on the back of her head, her fate uncertain. In chapter 36, Fallu reflects on her strained relationship with her father, who has accused her of theft after a visit to one of his farms. She is imprisoned in a cold cell, frustrated and angry at herself for getting caught and for being part of her father's oppressive rule. During her confinement, she is brought food by Tithus, a palace guard who reveals the harsh truths about her father's treatment of those who defy him. Tithus shares his own struggles, explaining how he followed in his father's footsteps to work as a guard, despite his discomfort with his job. Fallu realizes she has been blind to the suffering around her, particularly the plight of the farmers, and feels the weight of her actions. As she grapples with her guilt and attempts to make things right with Ranami, she decides to confront her father's tyranny and take action. In chapter 37, Lin is trapped in her room, reflecting on the disturbing truth that her father made her. She recalls her failed attempt to fix Illith, leading her to the realization that both she and Bayan are creations of her father. As Lin examines her memories in the journal, she uncovers a hidden note revealing her true origins. Her mother, Nisong Sukai, had been the intended model for Lin's creation. Her father had used a memory machine, trying to infuse Lin with her mother's memories after her death. Lin grapples with the horrific truth that she was never meant to be herself but a vessel for her mother's memories. As her father visits her, Lin's anger and heartbreak grow, realizing he never saw her as a daughter but as an experiment. She collapses, devastated by the realization and overwhelmed by grief. In chapter 38, Jovis is trapped and surrounded by guards in the governor's palace, but suddenly gains strength when he feels Mephi's presence. Using this newfound energy, he takes out the guards and confronts the governor, who panics and tries to flee. However, his daughter Fallu appears, revealing herself as the governor's heir and betraying her father. The rebels, led by Ranami, arrive, and Fallu declares her intention to take over the governorship. Jovis, still focused on finding Mephi and learning more about the boat, listens to Ranami, who suggests he infiltrate the palace to learn the truth about the Empire and potentially find the answers about Amala. Despite Ranami's offer, Jovis refuses to join their cause, driven only by his personal quest to find Amala. Returning to the rebels' cave, he finds Mephi recovered and they prepare to leave, with Jovis resolved to continue his search. In chapter 39, Sand, along with her companions, prepares to capture a mysterious boat on Mela Island. After noticing a shard with strange markings, Sand is reminded of her past, including memories of a man she once knew intimately. As the boat approaches, they spring into action, using a net to trap it in the cove. The cloaked figure, who had been controlling the people aboard the boat, is caught and pinned by a boulder. Sand questions him, learning that he is like her, though he remains silent about his origins. The captured figure, with 3 free arms, poses a strange mystery, and despite their attempts to tie him up, Sand decides to leave him restrained. The group now faces a new challenge, figuring out how to escape the island. Sand, now calling herself Nisong, signals a shift in her identity as she prepares for what comes next. In chapter 40, Lin struggles with the realization that she is not truly the Emperor's daughter, but a construct created by him. While locked in her room, she communicates with a spy construct named Hao, who helps her uncover a bar on the shutters, preventing her escape. After working with another construct, Lin manages to open the shutters and escape. She visits Bayan, another creation of the Emperor, and shares her discovery. Together, they realize they were both made for the Emperor's purposes, with Bayan being groomed to replace the Emperor. Lin explains that the Emperor uses a machine to implant memories, and he intends to rule through them. Bayan, initially resistant, eventually agrees to work with Lin to stop the Emperor. Lin believes that, despite their origins, they can defy their creator's intentions and take control of their fate. In chapter 41, Jovis prepares to leave Nefelanu Island and head to Mila, determined to rescue Amala. As he packs, he realizes that Mephi has undergone a transformation, no longer sick, but changing into something different. Mephi's growing horns and heightened abilities remind Jovis of the unknown dangers ahead. Despite his determination to focus on Imala, Jovis feels torn by the needs of the people around him, including the rebels, but refuses to be distracted from his primary goal. Once aboard his boat, Jovis reflects on his past with Imala, grappling with the possibility that she may be dead. Maifi comforts him, helping him refocus. Jovis resolves to move forward, choosing to fight against the Empire and save those he can, even if it means facing loneliness. He commits to his mission, vowing to topple the Empire and save more lives. In Chapter 42, Lin and Bayan make their way through the palace to free Mauga and confront the Emperor. They are joined by the constructs Ophelia and Mauga, who help them in their quest to stop Shiyen, the Emperor. Lin feels a strong connection to the Sukai legacy, despite her doubts about her identity. She faces the challenge of rewriting the commands of war constructs to fight back against her father's creations. As they approach the dining hall, Lin confronts Shiyen, revealing her true purpose and determination to stop him. A fierce battle ensues, with Lin struggling to rewrite the construct's commands and protect Bayan, who is attacked by Bingtai. Lin recalls memories of her mother, Nisong, and uses them to command Bingtai, turning him against Shiyen. The chapter culminates in chaos, with Lin's injuries mounting as Bingtai attacks Shiyen, signaling a dramatic turning point in the battle. In Chapter 43, Jovis prepares to infiltrate the Imperial Palace with Maifi by his side. Maifi's physical transformation continues, and Jovis reflects on his ongoing search for Imala. He learns that Gio and Ranami's motivations are different, with Ranami being a true believer and Gio having his own plans. Ranami gives Jovis a code to send messages back and forth, but Jovis warns her about Gio's intentions. As they arrive at Imperial, Jovis notices a mysterious figure, which he realizes is a construct. He pursues the figure, only to find that it is part of the Emperor's plans and connected to the disappearance of Imala. After a brutal confrontation with the construct, Jovis learns that Imala is dead. Overcome with grief, he still pushes forward, tending to Maifi's injuries. The chapter ends with Jovis entering the empty palace, sensing something is wrong and encountering a mysterious voice in the darkness. In Chapter 44, Lin surveys the aftermath of the battle, mourning the loss of Bayan and Numin's family. She discovers her father's death and explores a hidden room beneath the palace, where she finds disturbing evidence of her father's experiments, including a strange creature connected to his memory machine. Lin, deeply disturbed by the sight of this creature, releases it from its restraints, sensing a bond with it. She names it Thrana and begins to care for it. As Lin navigates the palace, she encounters fearful servants and orders proclamations to be written. Exhausted but resolute, she faces the daunting task of cleaning up the aftermath. When she notices a mural with eyes now open, signaling something sinister, she's confronted by a bloodied figure and another creature like Thrana. Shocked, Lin demands, "Who are you?" signaling an ominous turn in the story. In Chapter 45, Ranami grapples with her complex feelings for Falu, who has settled into her role as governor with ease. Despite Ranami's resistance, Falu continues to seek her counsel. Ranami is conflicted, knowing Gio wants Falu dead and feels guilty for pushing Falu into dangerous situations. When Ranami visits Falu at the palace, she's struck by the intimate setting and Falu's transformation. Falu admits her flaws, and the two women reconcile, sharing a heartfelt kiss. Falu then asks Ranami to be her wife, acknowledging her past mistakes and promising to do better. Ranami, overwhelmed by emotion, agrees, marking a new chapter in their relationship. Though uncertain of the future, Ranami is willing to take the chance on love, realizing that despite the challenges ahead, their connection remains strong. The chapter focuses on their emotional reunion and commitment to each other. In Chapter 46, Jovis encounters a woman in the palace who appears injured and exhausted. She is accompanied by a creature much larger than Maifi, which is also wounded. Jovis initially feels a sense of wrongness about her presence, but when she introduces herself as Lin Sukai, the Emperor, Jovis is shocked. The woman's appearance and demeanor suggest she is not a typical ruler, and she seems to recognize Jovis as the smuggler from the folk songs. Despite the tension, Jovis admits his purpose for being there, to turn himself in. Lin questions him, and when Jovis asks her identity, she reveals that she is the Emperor. As the weight of this revelation hits Jovis, he is overwhelmed and collapses. The chapter introduces Lin Sukai as a pivotal figure and sets the stage for an unexpected and intense encounter. In Chapter 47, Lin begins rebuilding the Empire after her father's death. She issues a proclamation declaring herself emperor and appoints guards, lacking constructs she can trust. Unsure of the situation across the islands, she drafts letters to the governors and plans to study her father's library for secrets about the Alanga. Meanwhile, Jovis recovers in her chambers with Mephi, his companion. Lynn, fascinated by Mephi and her own creature Thrana, asks Jovis about their origins. Jovis reveals Mephi came from Deerhead Island, and Lynn shares she found Thrana in her father's lab. Recognizing their shared goals, Lynn offers Jovis a pardon and asks for his help in reforming the empire and ending the tithing festivals. Jovis, moved by her honesty and resolve, agrees to help. Their alliance signals a new beginning for the empire, built on cooperation and the shared desire for change. In Chapter 48, Jovis reflects on his new role as captain of the Imperial Guard under Lin Sukai, the newly appointed emperor. Despite the luxurious surroundings and the honor bestowed on him, Jovis feels out of place and haunted by the death of Imala, whom he believes was lost due to the emperor's cruel experiments. Lin has begun rebuilding the palace and the empire, hiring new servants and undertaking repairs. As Jovis prepares for his public ceremony, he is overwhelmed by the folk song about him and his unexpected rise to power. Lin, resplendent in the emperor's robes, formally offers Jovis the position, and he swears his fealty, despite knowing it's a lie. His loyalty is torn between the shardless few and the empire. As Lin places the medallion around his neck, Jovis notices her eyes, which resemble Imala's, deepening his inner conflict. In Chapter 49, Nisong and her group on Mila Isle continue their efforts to escape the island. They discover a narrow passage through the reefs, and with careful planning, they aim to sail southwest to another island. Nisong, now taking the lead, grapples with the realization that she and her companions are constructs created by the Emperor. The fog that had clouded their minds lifts, granting them clarity. Nisong feels a strong desire for violence and revenge against whoever created them. They discuss their plan to escape and save as many of their fellow constructs as possible. Nisong decides they need to build an army, acknowledging that they can return for the others later. With a renewed sense of purpose, Nisong prepares to lead them in taking control of their future and confronting their creators. The chapter ends with Nisong determined to build an army and seek vengeance.